Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we explore the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Milan Kho, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced, the lessons learned, and the strategies fueling future growth. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by Isabella Venour, the founder of MindStyle, where she specializes in business strategy, mindset coaching, and marketing consulting for wellness entrepreneurs. She helps service-based and product-based business owners realign their offerings to create sustainable, scalable success without the overwhelm. Isabella's unique approach blends neuro-linguistic programming with practical business strategy to transform her clients' work into energizing ventures that align with their strengths. With that being said, Isabella, let me officially welcome you to Founders Future.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here. Gosh, I forgot you had all that information on me. I thought, how does he know all of that? Brilliant. Lovely introduction.
Yeah, I tried my best. Yeah, no, it's great to have you on the podcast, Isabella. I was looking forward to the conversation. So we're going to jump right into it. What I love to do with every single one of my guests is a little bit of traveling back in time, right? So before you even had this company, what were you doing before? And then eventually, what was the inspiration to start a business?
Absolutely. I do not come from an entrepreneurial business family at all. Neither of my parents went to university. They're very much head down, work hard, get on with your job kind of people. So my career before was in marketing. I worked my way up to become a director for an agency. I ran a team. I've had the pleasure of working with global brands, high street brands, startups, as well as teeny tiny individuals. And I absolutely loved it. It was also a sweatshop at times, but I got to a point where I felt like something was missing. I wanted to grow myself, develop myself. I loved human psychology, didn't know how that might feature in it. And I knew in the coming years, I would need a lot more time and choice freedom with my work. So I had all of these looming feelings and thoughts, and I think, what on earth am I going to do with that? So that's my background. Do you want me to carry on and tell you bits more about how that evolved to where I am today? Or
Sure, absolutely. Go
yeah.
for it.
Psychology, I loved. Looking back at university, I probably should have gone for that, but I went with what my grandfather and my father loved, which was debating and politics. And anyway, so at this point in my career, I thought, well, how can I do that? And I stumbled across coaching, which about 6, 7 years ago in the UK was starting to boom, but people didn't quite know it at the same pace that they know it now. And I thought, gosh, this is so simple, yet absolutely life-changing. I love it. Studied over a year doing that, and then also did neuro-linguistic programming, which I remember the first proper session I had, I thought, what have I done? Have I just walked into a cult? This is bizarre. And then again, very quickly realized, wow, this is again so powerful. Not sure how I'm going to use it yet, but it's something I want to keep learning and developing. So for a while, my business was a side hustle. Then I had the courage and became a full-time business. And for a while, it was just coaching. Coaching, if for anyone out there, is shutting up the bossy, creative part of me and brings out the humble part of me that says, right, what do you want from your life? Give me the humbling experience of walking alongside you in your mind, and let's see where you're going to take me. And I love that. It's such a powerful position to be in. But I really miss the creativity and the problem solving, and people would often come to me and ask me for advice. And I thought, well, how do those two sit together? How can I be bossy and interrupting and full of ideas in one moment, and then be quiet and listening and asking someone to lead me and helping them through their challenges? And I realized bit by bit I was dipping into business strategy, but this is also during, I think COVID had been going on for quite a while. People were increasingly becoming consultants and freelancers and experts in their field, but I didn't want to add to the noise online without having credibility, depth, and authority. So I always make sure I have training and experience to back up what I do. So I became certified as a business strategist. And I think it's only been since coming back from maternity leave, which is a whole other big wiggly part of the business journey, that I feel I'm clearer than ever about what I'm meant to do and what my business is. And that's where the business alignment method was born. Because I realized before, when people wanted my advice and I'd throw ideas and creative, problem solving and communication strategies their way, their eyes would light up, and then things wouldn't change as quickly as I thought they would. Impact, there wouldn't be as much impact as I'd hoped. until I added in the mindset stuff. And then I realized, actually, here are the ideas, but let's hang it on what you need, where you are, the resources you have available, the vision you have for the business, the purpose, and all of that. Suddenly then there was so much more momentum because I took a bit of a backseat. And it's taken a bit of test and trial and error. But I'm really excited now that there's this place where we basically create a strategy that not only hangs on the business, but hangs on the individual, and it's the growth of the business and the person. And I am very excited, but there's, gosh, so much more that I need to do.
Yeah. No, but this is a beautiful showcase of true entrepreneurship actually looks like. All of this adjustment, adjusting, pivoting, that's a part of the journey. Sometimes we feel like, okay, yeah, this is it. This is exactly where I wanted to be. A couple days later, no, actually, maybe not. So it's a beautiful part of the journey. And I would also say it's beautiful to see that you had to fight this kind of battle within yourself. And especially from the lens of, even in 2025, there's still a ton of people who don't really understand what coaching looks like and what it really is. A lot of people feel like that's the same thing as therapy. Like I'm just going to come to you, you're going to tell me what to do. No, that's not how coaching works. We can maybe dive deeper into this later. I just wanted to build on top of what you said. I'm already getting excited, so I'm just trying not to
No,
get
I
ahead
love
of
that.
myself.
No, you're
But
absolutely right.
yeah,
And there's a
Isabella,
whole,
yeah, go
I was
ahead. I'm
going to say
sorry.
the whole thing about the coaching industry, which I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with. So you're spot on there, and it can be incredibly powerful and beautiful, but also you're potentially giving other people keys to do some damage, and you've got a big responsibility if you use the word coach. And I think, as you
Yeah.
said, people need to really know what that word means and to find out if people are using it for the right reasons or whether it's just another badge of honor that they're adding onto the end of their name.
100%. 100%. Isabella, let's talk about where this journey got you overall and what the business really looks like today. In this part of the podcast, what I'm trying to do is get the listeners close to, well, first of all, who it is exactly that you're trying to help right now. And also, what is that core offering that you have in place for your clients? So tell us all about it.
Okay, so I noticed that a lot of businesses had, they've got the initial passion, the excitement of starting their business. They know what their business is about and they work really hard, and that creates momentum. And they think, great, this is working, let me continue. But then they get to a point where it's unsustainable. They've done that initial startup hustle and testing and trialing, and then they get a level of success. And they've got that level of success, and they're so scared to let it go that they hold on really tightly to it. But in holding tighter to it, they're actually risking the passion that started the business off in the first place. And that's the point where I want to say, okay, well done for getting here. You do have what it takes to get to the next level, but you don't need to settle with this generic success that's actually suffocating you or not fulfilling you. And actually, let's work with what you've got. Let's redevelop your strategy and help your business work for you in return. Because I'm a really big believer that if the business isn't working for you, isn't giving you the life that you want, isn't appealing to your own values, to your own purpose, then it's not going to be that sustainable for that long. I've spoken to a lot of businesses who you say, wow, I love what you're doing. And they said, well, not sure how much longer I've got in me to carry on like this. What do you mean? Or I've spoken to businesses who've got an incredible high street presence, and you invite them to a business event, which costs a bit of money, but not extortionate amounts, and they say that's as much money as I earn in however many months. And you think, what's going on with the profits there? Or people who say, I started my business to spend time at home with my family and work on these projects, and I've not touched those projects for years, or I'm not present when I go and sit with my family for dinner. I'm still thinking about that client.
Mm.
So one of my clients recently this year, I liked what she said. She came to me, she said, I want help growing up my business. So I think that's one of the things that I do. And going back to your questions, we talked about, so there's the hustle, the settling for generic success, and there's something that I coined, which is called the passion plummet spiral. And the longer that they hold on to the success, the more likely that businesses get sucked into working really long hours, trying to work harder, swapping time for money, feeling overwhelmed, compromising. It affects their resilience, their creativity, and all of that. And then that's, I think, why 50% of businesses thereabouts fail in the first 5 years. So that's what I'm here to change. You're spot on to say wellness practitioners. I think they're a really beautiful industry where they're giving so much to the communities and their clients, but they very often forget to give themselves back the same energy that they put out. And again, these people are fundamental for our communities, for our health, for our well-being. And because they're doing a good thing, it doesn't mean they don't need to make money from it. And there's a strange thing with money where you feel a bit guilty, especially when what you're giving is so linked to your identity and your self-worth. And so that's why I love working with them. But I also work with a lot of service-based businesses. I have worked with product-based businesses in the past. But it's essentially people who are tired of settling. They want to have the bravery to dream and plan bigger. And they want to overcome those fears, the fear of success, the fear of failure, and everything that comes with it. I might have gone off on a tangent. And my offers, you asked me, gosh, you asked me very big questions, right? So packages, I've got a big mix. I tend to, one of my own challenges, I tend to give too much and do too much in the limited time I have. And that's something that I've developed and do for my clients to try and streamline and focus on the plan ahead. But I do in-person workshops. Not big money maker, but I just love it. I love the energy that I get with other businesses. It's really affordable. It's really impactful. We had Play-Doh involved. So I had one of the images that I have was a very professional financial advisor in his 50s, I think he is. Sorry if he's younger. I think he's in his 50s. And he asked me for a takeaway box to take his model business that he made out of Play-Doh home with him to show his family, which I just loved. And we had tears and we had laughter, we had breakthrough, and there was just so much momentum. So the in-person workshops are amazing. If you're interested in online stuff, let me know. I also do audits. So I just go in, have a bird's eye view of your whole business and start saying, right, these are the areas you need to focus on in your business, whether that's to do with the messaging, the products, mindset, where you're going to market. So what is it that they need to focus on? And then we do 3-week intensives, seem to be quite popular. That is where we again have a really deep dive initial work together. And then over a 3-week period, I'm in your pocket. You can ask me any questions that come up. We can brainstorm. And it's essentially, you have my support as you start living and breathing this new action plan and this new change in your business. And it's for those businesses who aren't ready for a 6-month investment, but they want a bit more support. And then the 6-month VIP is where you've got me, a few times a month. You've got me ongoing for, ongoing support. One moment with one client, we might be talking about their messaging and marketing strategy. And another minute, we might be doing NLP, trying to unwire the anxiety that they have around unopened emails from clients. And I love the variety in that. And it really depends on what the clients bring me. So that's the main thing that I'm doing at the moment. There's a lot there.
Yeah. That's a lot. No, but I feel like this is a beautiful combination of, almost business consulting and the coaching that you started doing initially. So it seems like you really found yourself when it comes to this. Let me ask you this. When it comes to your industry, there's a ton of people who obviously are focusing just on the one-on-ones with their clients because that's the time where you can really go under the surface level and give them and be completely devoted to the client, basically.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, thinking about these things from the lens of being a business owner, one of the things that you have to think about is scalability, right? What am I going to do once I hit my capacity, right? So there's a lot of people who are also steering towards creating something more evergreen, and they're getting into the world of group coaching sessions just to have, the ability to impact a lot more people at the same time. Is this something that you're thinking about, or what is your perspective on it?
Very good question. And there's been a tug of war inside me. So before children, in the first iterations, first few years of business, I did all of the things. So I was an online radio host. I ran quarterly summits with guest speakers. I had a group mastermind. I had an online community. I did, just did all of the things. And I loved it. It was exciting, but it's just not realistic. Now I work 3 days a week. If one child gets ill, that's a whole week that disappears. And I have little nuggets of time, if that. So I really have to take my own advice, and I have to come up with a strategy that works for me, works for my audience, the market, gets me results, is realistic and all of that. So I have done group coaching, I've done masterminds, I've done online communities, and I did really enjoy it, but they're quite time intensive to do it well. I had over a year off in my business in maternity the last year. And in some ways, I feel like I'm starting from scratch. My knowledge isn't scratch, but my business model has changed somewhat. I'm geographically in a whole different area. My online community was on Facebook. I'm no longer on there for a couple of reasons. So for many ways, it's reinventing the wheel. So group coaching might be a thing in future, but it's absolutely not a priority. I'm all about how am I going to get the biggest return on investment with the time that I've got. So for me, it is those higher ticket clients that I'm working towards. But because I love to do all those things in between, I do the workshops and the audits so that I keep conversations going with people who maybe aren't quite ready for those higher ticket packages. In future, what I would love to do is, again, going to the question of how do I support so many, I call them the messy middlers, the ones that have left the excitement of the startup phase. They're not quite at the scaling bit, maybe who ready for investment and things. And then at the messy middle point where they say, is this it? Is this what success is about? Is this all I've got I can make from it? And how do I support them kind of en masse? And I would love to do a CPD accredited program where I help other businesses, whether it's the business themselves, the founder, or other suppliers, maybe a business coach who just does the coaching, or maybe a business planner who has financial background. And I want to help them figure out how to support businesses create aligned success. So that's aligned success, looking at strategy as well as the mindset and then the communications package around that. And that's what I would love.
So basically working with your methodologies, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that's what I think is missing at the moment. There are a lot of business coaches who absolutely have a place, and they can create a lot of momentum, they can create a lot of confidence in someone, but they don't always have the knowledge gap. So what I've noticed is a lot of small business owners, they have a combination of, or a bit of both, a knowledge gap and a mindset gap. And business coaches who just do the coaching might fill the mindset gap. And then other people like business planners, consultants, financial advisors, they will have some knowledge, but they have quite specialized knowledge. And what I notice is missing is the advisory role and the strategy role, which is usually limited to large corporations with big funds. More and more it's becoming democratized. And I'm working with an organization to be part of that as well. But I see that there's a gap there. So I would love to then come in and say, right, if you're a business coach and you've got the mindset stuff, fantastic. But actually, let's give you some strategy support so that you can go in and make sure that when you're offering them, when you're supporting them on the mindset front, we can also make sure that the basics are in place with their strategy. So we're not just kind of building your confidence in a business structure that just isn't going to sustain you or isn't going to work. And vice versa. That might be, financial advisor who's saying, or a marketing consultant who says, do this tactic, the algorithm's saying this, look how exciting, some other client did these cool videos, and the person says, I absolutely hate videos, I don't want to do that. And it's saying, okay, pause a moment, you've got all the ideas, but what's your client actually telling you? What do they need? And I think we need to bridge that gap. And I'm here ready for it, but I'd also like to help others do that.
What's funny to me is that basically the situation that you found yourself in terms of really getting honed in on like what it is that I need to do on a day-to-day basis so that I have the highest return on investment, is pretty much the same principle as we see with a ton of people in these industries where you basically want to help everybody, right? But there is not a single way for you to do so. Obviously, you can try and create, different offers, something more affordable. You can create a ton of free content. For you, it was mainly giving up on those workshops and all these other things that you love doing, but you cannot really afford to because of like time-wise constraints, right? So, when it comes to this, and I also want to leverage on the fact that your background is coming from marketing world. Um, Obviously, when you are in a position where you can only invest like 2 or 3 days per week into building the business and really scaling further, you got to think about the highest revenue generating activities, which is always for you going to be communicating with the right people at the right time. A big part of it is having a good client acquisition system in place, the ability to really message the offer in the right way that allows you to speak to these people, right? Especially if you're going into the world of high ticket. So my question is, what is it that you're currently doing on the front of marketing/lead generation to make all of that happen?
Again, really good question. I love it. So I will tell you what I'm doing and what I'd like to do. And this is sometimes a challenge for small businesses, especially someone with my background. I can see everything that I could do, but I've got to remember that it's just me. I don't have a team. My resources are tight. They're now going to 2 tiny human beings. So right now, my strategy is what I do best. And that is talking to people. So I've been this last year getting on stages. This is actually my first podcast this year, but I've been getting stages in person, which I really enjoy, doing in-person workshops. And I've been talking about marketing strategy, aligned success. And I find that is a really great way to bring people into my world, for me to keep communicating my messaging, build authority, trust, credibility. I've got my 3 C's somewhere. Where's my post-it note? Here we are. Connect, collaborate, and community. So what am I doing to build that? The workshop, as I said, isn't a moneymaker, but it helps build community, build authority and trust, and it lights me up. So it's giving me a different type of return on investment as my business grows. I think you also need to remove your ego. So, for example, my website is awful. It's not up to date with where my business is. It's over however many years old. And I've got to be okay with that. And so many clients have come to me over the years and said, I can't do this because I don't have that. And I'm a big believer that any good idea should be able to be executed in its most simplest form. So one thing that I'm doing really simply at the moment is I'm sometimes with new offers or proposals putting onto a Google Doc. It doesn't need to be fancy. What is really valuable is my knowledge. I've had, and can sometimes I have my own imposter syndrome and thoughts. I've been I've been playing with dealing with tantrums this morning. I don't feel professional, and I've got my slippers on. Who's going to take me seriously? Well, actually, years ago, I had global businesses taking my advice. I've made huge transformations with the team. I've been running a team. And so when you think of it in the corporate world, it suddenly feels legitimate. But when it's yourself in your slippers at home, there can be a bit of a wobble. So it's also, where am I going from? I notice the mindset blocks in my clients, and I also feel it myself. So I am there like my clients. It's not perfect, but it's progress. You need to get really clear on what you're offering, who needs it, what's the most streamlined way to get you there. If you've got more resources, more time, fantastic. But if you don't, what can you do now that's going to move you forward? And really try not to get lost in being busy, but get busy moving forward. I think that makes sense.
Yeah. It does make a lot of sense. And I'm also curious about your perspective on what's going to happen in the future. Because just knowing that there is this time constraint, obviously, you need to set yourself up for success in terms of creating a better ecosystem, right? There needs to be consistent, predictable way for people drop into your pipeline and potentially maybe employing a sales representative in the future to take all of those calls for you. There's just so many different things that you can do to actually take the business to the next level. Let's talk about future. Let's talk about what you're planning. What is it?
Okay. Definitely want a beautiful or singing or dancing funnel. I've had little versions of that in the past. I've got some automations in place. I use Kajabi is the platform that I use. I'm not utilizing it to its potential. So that would be great. I think part of my reason, I feel like it's worked and not worked in the past. And part of that, I think, is me going through my business evolution, figuring out what it is that I'm offering, how I'm offering it. And I think it's something that I really want, but I don't feel like I really need it yet. So that's there, it's coming. So that would, the funnel, the golden singing, dancing funnel. What else was I going to say about that? No, it's gone. Yeah, and so automations, other things I use with AI. So apart from Kajabi, I absolutely love my Claude. It's good personality. I think it's a he. I make sure I put in my knowledge, my thoughts, and then ask him to tweak that. I'm very conscious of leaning on it too much. I think there was a study with young people. Some of them used AI for an extended period of time, the others didn't, and then they actually monitored their brains. And apparently, again, very loose stat here, sorry guys, but they saw that there was, they actually reduced their intelligence or their productivity when they relied on AI too much. So I'm very conscious of that. And I have an absolute fear of accidentally stealing someone else's something. I just would hate to do that. Whatever comes needs to come from me, from experience, from knowledge. So use Claude, automate things, with Xero, accounting stuff. Accounting is not my strength. And Fathom as well. I really love using Fathom. So that is a program that records interviews and meetings, and then it just helps me capture all the details that I need. So again, I will write a proposal, but I will then ask AI saying, based on my proposal, based on this conversation, are there any other points I've missed? And I also find it just a really useful note-taking tool for clients, because some of them, even though they might never look back on them, people like to have notes from our time together and to see their progress.
Beautiful. Would you say that also hiring people and really finding that ability within yourself to delegate and bring other people into the company is going to be a part of what you're going to do?
Definitely. So I've got a business advisor at the moment. This year I've invested, in a couple of business advisors and a business masterminding group, and that's been amazing. Whenever I invest in myself, with similar things to what I do, there's huge momentum. There is always so much to learn. It holds up a mirror to you quicker than you can do it for yourself. I have had VAs in the past and social media managers in the past, but in this season of my life, after a year off, we're going back down to very much skeleton. So again, removing my ego, this is where I am. But it's also, like I was saying before, it's really having less time, having two human beings who are just sucking the resources that I do through the money that I do make. It is forcing me to take my own advice more than ever before. And although I find that incredibly frustrating, being a personality that works very quickly, very visual, I can see what I want, I think it's actually a really healthy, useful challenge that life has thrown at me at this season of my life. Yeah.
Well, that's where we grow the most, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So I would 100% agree with you. Now, talking about challenges, before we wrap it up, I also want to take advantage of you being so transparent about everything. Obviously, we love to talk about the exciting stuff, but in terms of the not so good stuff, aside from having that time constraint, out of everything, what would you say could become the biggest challenge to really making it happen when it comes to growing and scaling?
Mm-hmm. I think it's trusting myself, trusting my strategy, and then taking that calculated risk to invest. I very much talking about values. I very much grew up with save your money, don't spend it, and that's very useful in many ways. But in business, it can also be really limiting. So that's something that I'm very mindful of. And whenever I have invested, I've got it back. I think trusting myself very much. Challenges will also be life. So, one of the biggest challenges in my growing my business was loss. I was a period of 6 months where there were lots of loss and personal loss without going into too much detail. And that hugely knocked my confidence. And I just didn't want to show up. And doing the business that I'm doing, I'm very much the face of the business. And I just not only didn't want to show up, I didn't want to do the work. And I knew that I had to keep something going, keep money coming in, keep momentum going, but also be kind to myself. So I was the bossiest coach I've ever been to myself in that moment. Set myself really clear financial goals. I wanted the security and stability of a consultancy role. So I had a very 1-2 day a week consultancy role for 6 months to give me that stability and money coming in so that I could gently tick along on my business, but it wouldn't depend on me. I wouldn't depend on it, sorry. And that meant that by the time I did feel more emotionally resilient to step back into it, things had been ticking along and I could then just step into that in 6 months time. So I think remembering that life will happen, there will be challenges, whether that's the market, whether that's economic crisis, whether that's family loss, whether that's health, those things will happen. So what can you do to protect yourself and then the business to continue thriving and surviving? And part of that is strategy, huge bits of mindset. But with my clients, I very often ask them, how is your sleep? Have you done exercise? You send that email at 10 o'clock at night, what's going on? And that is the flow operations, I call it, is also a big part of how I work and how I help my clients work, is building a business that's sustainable, not just in a flashy funnel kind of way sustainable, but in a life happens sustainable way.
Smart.
Yeah.
Well, you're considering everything, obviously. So, I always say it's not just going to be sunshine and rainbows. This is going to be a big part of that journey. We're going to fail. We're going to learn. We're going to move on. Isabella, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing that journey with me and the audience. It's been a great conversation, though. I enjoyed
Lovely.
myself.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you for listening and the lovely space that you're creating here. Thank you.
thank you. I appreciate it. Now, to our listeners, if today's conversation inspired you as well, make sure to subscribe to Founders Future on your favorite platform. And also, if you're a business owner, more specifically a consultant or a coach, or you have an agency, and you're trying to scale the business and really enhance both your sales and marketing efforts, also visit closers.io, get in touch with our team, and discover how exactly we scaled our company from 0 to over 30 million per year in less than 3 years. Until then, keep on crushing it, and I'll see you on the next one.